Welcome to the Fit Dads podcast. My name's Ryan Dutton. I'm joined by the man himself, Mr. Brad Thompson.
Thanks, Sam, mate. That's a very
Bit of a different intro for you there this week.
Grand, that one.
We are going to do bulking versus cutting.
Oh, cutting.
Cutting.
I like what you just did there. Ryan just did like an X with his hands.
A little X-Men sign.
Yeah.
And what was the word you used? What,
when, and how.
Yes, absolutely. We want to tell you the best ways to do the bulk, best ways to do the cut, pros and cons for both, and the right and wrong ways to approach them.
Should we dive in with what these two terms actually are? Because I think these two terms are quite bodybuilderish, where like you think about
very bodybuilderish, yeah.
Bulking, I've wrote down here, is an increase in calories with the aim to build size and strength with the addition of lifting big weights.
I think you say size, but I think if we get more specific, what people are really looking to do on a bulk is build muscle mass. Let's not be around the bush. From a bodybuilding standpoint, if that's where it's originated, bulking basically means let's try and build as much muscle mass and not worry about kind of maybe the body fat levels.
And cutting is probably, well, it's the direct opposite, which is the process of dropping, and I've put weight/body fat via a calorie deficit, an increase in movement, or both.
I'd say more body fat than weight. I think if you said to most people, you're going to drop no weight, but you're going to get lean, perfect, because it means you're losing as little muscle mass as possible, and you're expelling hopefully as much body fat as possible.
I think I had combat sports in my head, where you see like there's the boxing, as we're recording, Tyson Fury's fighting Usyk tomorrow. They'll have had to cut weight, but actual body weight.
That's right.
They'll probably
There's different terms for cutting. I mean, really it just means like dropping something. Primarily body fat, but
I feel like that's where a lot of people can get confused by it, because if you hear like, oh, I'm going on a cut, some people live in a cut. And it's really dangerous.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think people I see this probably more so in girls, where they do a cut, love how it feels down there, love how it looks, stay down there for too long, lose a lot of muscle mass, probably get an eating disorder, and then fuck themselves up for a while. Yeah.
And then they almost, for context as well, people think, well, why can't you just keep losing body fat? Why can't you just, if you keep dropping into a calorie deficit, what's going to stop you? Physics will stop you doing that. Where you've got an adaptation of your metabolism.
Damn physics.
Damn it, physics.
And biology. God, I wish that didn't exist.
But your metabolism will ultimately adapt to keep you alive. And I think a lot of people forget that. And you don't just want to be alive, you want to actually thrive, and that's what we try and teach people, where if you're constantly living in this cut, and that's why I think I really wanted to touch on when you can maybe do a bulk and when you could maybe do a cut. Have you got any thoughts on this before I chew your ear off? Because I feel like we're going to have different views on this. I feel like we will.
Do you mean when is the right time in the year, or?
I think you've said in the past about when you first start working with someone, body fat's quite a big priority in terms of let's get that down. Let's let you sit around that sort of 20% mark.
Yeah.
Would you say that's the same for the majority?
Definitely. Definitely for me. I think if someone, I'm going to get onto it a little bit more in more detail, but I do think that getting someone to a position of body fat where they feel better in themselves is way better than us just, utilising body fat and their high levels of body fat to build more muscle.
Yeah.
Because building muscle takes longer. Cutting usually takes less time.
Yeah. Well said. And I think for a lot of people, you want to be able to do it from a healthy place, mentally as well and physically. And more often than not, if you try and drop your body fat, if you've been out of the game for a while and your target is, I want to lose weight/body fat, you're probably going to feel better. You're probably going to be more mobile. Probably less pain, no doubt, less pressure on your joints. You've probably been able to do more and unlock a lot more movement. So in that case, I fully agree. My view is probably a bit distorted, probably because of the amount of people that come to me who are in this, that they live in that cut and they've never got out of that cut in the past. They don't know how to go into a bulk, or I'm going to throw a term in now, which might not mean a lot to people, which is like reverse diet them out of it.
Yeah.
It's a big, I suppose, philosophy of mine that I will check where someone's at metabolically first, which might not mean a lot to people listening right now, but
why do you think that people are scared to come out of the cut in your experience? What's the hesitation for people to start putting on weight?
I think it's the feeling that they're going to go back to where they started, where they think, well, that doesn't make sense. If I now start eating the calories that what you're asking me to, I probably ate that when I were at my heaviest. So why am I going to do that? But then sort of teaching them about developing muscle, teaching them about metabolic health and that sort of stuff, because odds are their body's probably progressed in spite of the calories sometimes, or the body's maintaining, they're probably in a really suboptimal zone from a health standpoint. And that's where most people typically come to me. I work with numerous women who come to me and they've lost their cycle. You know, they're not happy with where they're at mentally. They're still not happy with where they're at physically. And I feel like that's why I really wanted to touch on the when for a lot of people.
I've got a guy I'm coaching at the moment who's going through this, and he's had your textbook. It's gone really plain sailing, like, was fantastic in losing his body fat, got his body fat down from 22 to 10.5%.
Wow.
Phenomenal. And then he looked a little bit gone, but we maybe took him a bit further than we wanted to go, but I think he wanted to try and push it and see how far down we could get.
Yeah.
And then as we built weight back up, it's been your textbook lean bulk, shall we say. He's gaining muscle at a phenomenal rate and not really putting on much muscle mass. To put it into perspective, saw the guy this morning after a month, and he's gained 5.2 pounds in 4 weeks, but he's gained less than 1% in body fat, 0.9% body fat.
Wow.
And he was like, oh, but I can't keep it. We built him up from, like, what was he on? He was on maybe just under 2,000 calories. Now he's on 3,200. And he's obviously eating a lot more. And sometimes at that point, when you're trying to build and grow and bulk, for a lot of people, it can be quite difficult to get the calories down.
Yeah.
You know, people who aren't used to eating that much. And after, 3, 4, 5 months of bringing the weight and the calories down, it's now then hard to retrain that brain, because he's thinking, well, if I'm gaining all this weight and I'm eating all these calories, I'm going to go back to being fat, surely. And I'm like, Rich, look in the mirror. You've got a six-pack.
Yeah.
Your muscles are bulging. Your strength's going up. You've got nothing to worry about. We can push the calories to probably another 500 and you'd be sound. His body fat has gone from, he's gained 5 pounds, but his body fat's only gone from 10.5 at its lowest to 12.9 now. So this is a guy who's responding really well to the training. Weights and numbers are going up. Food and calories are going up. Body fat's pretty much staying put. But again, he's got his hesitations about the increases.
I think that's why I want to stress the fact of coming at this from quite a healthy place mentally as well. Because if we're going to phase people through certain types of their training, like that is a phase. You know, you're not going to be able to eat in this calorie surplus all your life, because that will end in one direction, which is up. But also when it comes to understanding that, it is a phase, and you will be, it's not forever. You know, you will be utilizing this. You mentioned a phase there, lean bulk, which I think confuses a lot of people sometimes. So if someone goes on like a dirty bulk, we say that's like the opposite to a lean bulk.
Definitely.
Yeah. So for context, a dirty bulk is mind sweeping everything in sight to get as big as you possibly can, but maybe you bring some body fat along the way.
I think let's break the two things down. Let's go into a bit more detail with both of them. So let's pick bulking to start with.
Yeah.
It's Christmas time. Or this episode, when it gets released, it'll be post-Christmas, so there'll be a lot of festive foods flying around still, I'm sure. I think, do you know what they're calling it nowadays, the kids? The winter arc. Have you heard this?
No.
Have you not heard of the winter arc?
No, I've not.
Oh, all the kids are going, I'm going into my winter arc now. Basically, they're just training for it winter. How stupid is that?
I don't know why it makes me cringe. Am I just getting old?
Yeah, I'm the same, mate. I'm cringed at these weird things. And I'm like, what is a winter arc? What's all these guys going? I'm going into my winter arc phase. Basically, just means they're bulking. They're eating more food. They're training during the winter. When I was a kid, that was just called training. We just called it training. There was no winter arc.
Yeah.
There wasn't really any bulking. It was just, I'm going to train through the winter. But it just shows you how many people only train during the summer and now kind of cutting on to the fact that, if I want to be in shape come next year and be better, kind of got to train in December as well. Anyway, off topic before I rant any more about that. Bulking done wrong, let's start with that. In a nutshell, it is just getting fat, right? Studies have actually proven that you can gain muscle mass at around 10 to 15% body fat for men and 20 to 25% body fat for women. So you don't actually have to be that high in body fat to gain muscle. Personally, as we touched on, I like to keep clients below 20%. If anyone's above 20%, my preference is bring them down around that 20% mark before we then start thinking about increasing numbers, changing programs to promote more muscle mass, and potentially increasing calories again. And any more than that, I think you start to feel, number one, a little bit more uncomfortable in your clothes. you're going to get up in the morning, look in the mirror and think, I look no better than Bob, who drinks 5 cans a night, and you probably start to question, why you even started training this morning. So let's not beat around the bush. I've had that before. I woke up in the morning on a bulk and gone, I look like I've never trained a day in my life. I literally look overweight, I'm flat. And then you start questioning everything about where you're going with your own training. Being overweight and having high levels of body fat is mentally quite tough as well when you're training really hard, because you're not seeing the shape and the definition. And unless you're a competitive bodybuilder who trains freakishly hard, the intensity of your sessions isn't going to be top notch, right? So having high levels of body fat just isn't warranted. I don't think it's warranted whatsoever. And that's not to mention like health markers, for example. So health markers across the kind of board completely plummet and are worse off. Things like inflammation's increased, insulin resistance increases, you've got poor cardiovascular output, to mention a few. And all these things massively impair your ability to actually build muscle. So there's no reason really for you to eat shit. And I think for some people, let's not be on the bus, it is just an excuse for people to eat like shit and convince themselves there's a solid reason behind it. Like that really is the nuts and bolts of a bulk for most people. But the hard thing is building muscle while staying lean. And you have to have a really good strategy and program behind you to be able to do that. Rant over.
Full stop. Yeah, I've noted down 3 bullet points here. When not to bulk, if body fat levels are already dangerously high, and I say dangerously, there's psychological reasons like you mentioned, but physiologically speaking, you could be at risk of a heart attack. Probably not going to put you on a bulk if that's the case. With big digestive issues, and I say this as someone who does maybe suffer with the digestion a little bit, that can be tough if you're trying to shovel in loads of calories and your frequent trips to the toilet and stuff. Where are them calories going? I always think this, you're probably not absorbing as much as what you should and could be. So that's when I'd maybe tiptoe around it. And probably in the summer, maybe you don't want to be bulking in the summer because it's quite a weird time to bulk, really. But so the winter arc could be the good time to do it.
We need to stop using that phrase. I'm not promoting that.
I feel younger already.
Just you're training in the winter. It's not a winter arc.
It's not a winter arc. Maybe when to bulk though. I've mentioned here if someone's metabolism sort of not dangerously slow, but I've prided myself on being able to bring clients who I work with out of this metabolic pit of doom, I call it, which is 6 sessions a week, very high intensity, very low calories, nowhere else to go. You're in a hole. That for me is a good time to put people on a bit of a surplus, detrain them a little bit, lower the intensity, and let's see if we can actually recover you a little bit, give your body a bit of respite. Yeah, that's a great time. Or that you want to build some muscle, or you're a sumo wrestler.
Sumo wrestler, okay. Yeah.
I thought about sumos for some reason.
Sumos don't need any kind of calorie counting. They just eat all the calories and gain all the weight on all the body fat.
All the pork pies.
And all the pork pies. Several pork pies a day. And you will definitely be better at your sport.
Have you ever seen this? I'm going massively off topic now. Have you ever seen the specific, I think it's like a soup that sumo wrestlers have. It's like the most high calorific meal. It's unbelievable, really easily digestible. It's something with miso, I think. I will find this out because it's insanely calorific.
Oh no!
I'm a searcher.
Yeah, search
I'm a searcher. I'm going
to think about some of the things that are going to be in it. So it's going to be oils because they're really dense. There's probably going to be peanut butter, like a bit of satay in there potentially. There's going to be some meat. And it's probably going to be high fat meat, isn't it? So it's going to like pork belly or high fat mince or something like that. Have you found it?
What do sumo wrestlers eat? The traditional meal for a sumo wrestler is a stew called, I've not prepared this, chanko nabe.
I like that. He's gone straight in. That sounds like you've said it before.
Which is made of different meats, rice and veg. Surprisingly, the stew is low in fat, but it's really high calorie.
Oh wow, so it's high in fat. So meat, rice and veg.
Meat, rice and veg. But it's like this massive stew that they eat.
Oh, so let's be honest, it's a bodybuilding diet.
Basically, yeah.
But just in a stew,
liquid form.
In a bowl of ramen, and you get chopsticks with it.
Chicken, rice and...
chopsticks, not like in a Tupperware.
Chicken, broccoli and rice in a soup.
It's basically the sumo equivalent of chicken, broccoli and rice in a Tupperware box.
Yep. Yeah, blended.
Or how do you say it?
Let me have a look. Chanko nabe.
AKA bodybuilder Tupperware box. Is that what it translates to?
Sumo bodybuilder.
I think that's official. Let's just go with that.
But no, in terms of cutting. I feel like if we can transition to that a little bit, mate,
Sure.
when it comes to
cool.
maybe when not to. When would you maybe recommend that someone not go into a cut? I've got a few notes here if you want me to start. Don't mind.
Yeah, go on. I'll start what I think.
I've put when the calories are already super low. I've mentioned about that avatar of person who typically comes to me, very low calorie, very high intense training, nowhere else to go. Probably not going to put you in a cut there. Should be on like 800 calories a day. Maybe when you're super stressed as well. I know people who, if we're going to push you really hard with your training, you're in a calorie deficit and you've got a lot going on in your life, there's something called as allostatic load, if I've mentioned this in the past.
Allostatic load?
Allostatic load, which is basically how much stress your body can handle mentally, physically. Ollie Newton speaks about it like a stress bucket. And that's why I said I vibe with Ollie so much, because I really relate to that allostatic load analogy. Sometimes you just have to clear some things off your plate before you can push for something.
I didn't know that was the technical name for it, but we have to manage stresses, and you're absolutely right. I think going into a cut too early when someone's got, you know, they're going for a breakup, they're changing jobs. Kids are getting to an age where they're really kind of starting being little shits. And then now you want to go and do some bodybuilding cycle of training that's going to take you the next 3 months, and you know you're looking to shred up as much as possible. Your allostatic bucket, shall we say? It's been a long day, man. 5 hours sleep last night. Forgive me. It's not the wisest choices, let's be honest. You know, you want to be at that point thinking about, right, what is the minimum amount of output that I need to do to manage all these stresses? And actually a surplus is probably not a bad idea in that kind of scenario.
And you have to think, if you're super stressed, your body is telling you you're at risk here. So you're probably going to hold on to body fat. Your body's it's going to work some weird voodoo magic inside and be like, we're going to hold on to some body fat now. I've seen people do this where everything's as it should be. They're eating the right calories, genuinely, none of this false reporting stuff. They are training as much as they should do, but for some reason there's a stress that's stopping their body progressing. And I've seen this countless times. And whether it's some life stress, and then all of a sudden when that stress gets sorted out, results start to happen. It's really strange.
Interesting.
I've seen this numerous times, and it's and my final one was, if you're already underweight, it goes without saying, if you are severely underweight and you're actually at risk of maybe being a little bit more brittle, maybe you are at risk of, you know, on the cusp, or you actually have an eating disorder, anorexia, bulimia is two that, you know, spring to mind. That's probably something we're going to avoid.
I think as well, people sometimes don't build enough muscle mass before starting a cut.
Agree.
And I think we're looking maybe at some quite extreme things there, like anorexia, bulimia, probably smaller percentages of a society. I think most people maybe might do some kind of building, growing of muscle mass, and then they think, right, I'm ready for a cut now. I think a lot of people are pretty disappointed when they cut too early, don't build enough muscle mass, and then realise that they've probably, because you sacrifice some muscle mass whilst you're cutting, and you have to bear that in mind. So you don't just want to get to a point where you look good and you're happy while you've got body fat. You have to imagine what you'd be like stripped back a little bit, and sometimes you're not as big as you think. I see that with a lot of guys where they get to the gym, and sometimes conversations with young lads in the gym where they're like, I've been bulking for 6 months now, I want to do a little cut, and I'm looking at them going, I wouldn't start cutting now, son. I'd probably leave it a little bit longer, give it another 6 months. A bit more calories, a bit more intensity.
Build a bit first.
And then think about that cut, but obviously, in a nice, non-condescending way.
Exactly. When would you maybe advise someone to do a cut? Is it that 20% mark that you try and stick towards, or any other factors that you consider?
Truthfully, I think when someone feels ready. Yes, absolutely, the things you mentioned, there's no doubt about those are the two main things. So number one, mental stress. Can this person right now for the next 12 weeks to 16 weeks handle being in a caloric deficit? Can they handle that? That's primary goal number one. Is this something that they can manage? And then number two, what are the kind of why do they want to cut? Number one, I think is a good reason. What is the reason for it? Do you want to just reveal a little bit more of your body? Have you got a holiday coming up? Is there something you're prepping for? Have you got a competition? Is it something like a marathon that you want to drop some weight for? Is it, I don't know, what I'm into a little bit more like the high rock stuff. You need to perform a little bit on the day. Will a little bit less weight mean that you can move quicker and run faster? Great, if so, let's go for it. If there's a clear and an obvious objective. But I think cutting is harder to get wrong because it all depends on how you approach it and what your end goal is. For a lot of people, they cut because they want to be leaner and they want a six-pack. But if the way you approach that is doing it in 6 to 8 weeks and dieting as hard and as fast and as aggressive as you can, the chances are it's not going to be sustainable, and you're going to be very disappointed at the end of it when you can't turn the tap back off and you're reaching for the cookie jar and you're at KFC every night and you're ordering pizzas on a weekend and the booze has started coming back in and you're now back at square one, and it's all because you did it over 6 weeks, 8 weeks as opposed to 12 to 16 weeks.
You've almost gone from this famine to feast mentality, which is very much like, you think about what happens when you do go into a cut. You're not giving your body like sufficient calories that it needs, so it taps into fat reserves. There's no right or wrong, there's no blurring the lines about that. That's what happens. So if all of a sudden your body's sensing that, we don't have enough calories here, but it's fine, we've got some reserves, we'll tap into those. When you then reverse out of that, that's probably when you see that feast mentality of people come into it, because you've been in that famine phase for 3 or 4 months and you go, right, psychologically you might think, I'm going to fill my boots here because I've been without calories for this long, I'm going to fill my boots. So it takes a lot of mental strength to actually do it sensibly. And you said it earlier, like Liz Bamford says, don't eat like a knobhead. Yeah, it's true. Absolutely. It's really true. But I think when a lot of people eat emotionally, that's when it can get difficult on the bounce back. But I've gone a little bit off topic.
I think I robbed that phrase from Liz, didn't I?
You did,
don't eat like a knobhead.
You did.
I use that regularly now. This time of year, all the time.
Yeah, just don't eat like a knobhead.
Eat well, but just don't eat like a knobhead.
It's fair.
I like to quote Liz every time I say it.
Yeah, do it. Yeah, do it.
Liz Bamford, circa 2023.
Just message her and be like, I've said your catchphrase again. She's asking for royalties next.
But. But I do think cutting is harder to mess up because there's not really a good and bad time for it. I think, the other thing is as well, like sometimes I think people, it's a bit like bulking. There's a right amount of body fat that you can stay around, I think, to not be overweight, to feel comfortable with yourself, but still progress in terms of muscle mass. On the way down, when you're cutting, there's a right amount of calories and just the right amount of time frame that you need to do things in a very healthy, kind of sustainable way. And some people undershoot it. They go 6 to 8 weeks, as I mentioned, sometimes, probably most of the time, not sustainable. And sometimes people go the other way as well, where they don't take it serious enough. They're on a cut, they're telling everyone on a cut, but they're still having pizza at a weekend. And those weekly calories are still getting high. They're great Monday to Friday, but they just can't control Friday, Saturday night. And the progress is really slow. I'm on a cut, I'm dieting, I'm eating rabbit food during the week, but they're actually not pushing hard enough at a weekend. That happens as well. So it's either end of the spectrum, and you need to work out where you are. And again, it comes back to the episode from last week, goal setting. It's having a mapped out plan of what you need to do every single week to achieve your target. I think some people, when they prolong a cut, it just goes on for so long because they've not really got a plan. They've not really got some calories they need to stick to, and it ends up being a little bit like, oh right, okay, hope this works, but they're stabbing in the dark. There's no clear outline to what they need to do, and there's no end goal to it as well. Sometimes that's important, having a bit of an end goal.
Yeah. That's why I think we've said about phasing in the goal setting masterclass. I honestly think phasing is the way to go for people, because at least they can push hard in one direction and it's crystal clear. You give your body something to adapt to mentally. You know that there is an end, and I think that's really, really important. But that might be a nice segue, actually, mate, of how to do it effectively. Okay. Which one would you like to start with, bulking or cutting? How to do effectively?
Well, we've done a bit of cutting there. We started with bulking first, so let's start with bulking.
Yeah. So bulking, I feel like you've spoken about this really well, but I've tried to put it in really blunt, simple terms. If you want to bulk effectively, you've got to increase the calories gradually and then monitor metrics like body weight, energy, strength gains in the gym, that sort of stuff. Just depending on what you want to track and what you want to monitor, whether that's body fat levels, whether we can give you some targets now. Would you agree with that?
The two things I'm mainly concerned about with a bulk is body fat and weight. I'm not too concerned about energy levels. I think they're going to be quite high. You're in a surplus. I'd be worried if they weren't high. You're having more food than your body probably needs.
I think that's why I like to monitor it sometimes, to sort of prove the point that, listen, notice how you feel. Like, you will be able to push quite hard now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. But I think they'll probably usually get that message within like the first like month. They're like, okay, this feels good. I feel more energetic. Sometimes the only thing I will touch on with energy is when you have too many calories, it can make you feel lethargic sometimes, and that can be a bit of a counter-intuitive thing where you're eating more to gain more energy, but it actually can make you feel tired and sluggish a little bit.
It's the Christmas dinner effect.
Yeah, exactly. You know, straight after Christmas dinner, your body's like, Jesus Christ. And if you're in a quite heavy surplus sometimes, you can have those same feelings in your week. So maybe energy levels or something we'll mildly monitor. But generally, if we're doing, like I said, a cleaner bulk, we're not looking at getting massive amounts of body fat, I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue. Body fat and weight are the main things. And in an ideal world, weight goes up quite quickly. Body fat doesn't move much.
I think for most people, it's knowing how much you can actually boost your calories by and knowing how to gauge it. And this is where I try and pride myself on that reverse dieting standpoint, where I've had people who start to like spike the calories by 500, but then all of a sudden they start to lose weight. And I'm like, because you're still in a deficit. Like, you're literally still in a deficit. So you keep creeping the calories up and up and up until eventually that scale weight starts to maintain where they're at. And I'm trying to teach them that actually when you have an abundance of calories, your body will convert some of those carbs into glycogen. They'll store it in your muscles and your liver. You'll be able to use that in your sessions, and just sort of teaching them that is the benefit behind it. You'll have a massive performance boost. You'll hopefully be able to grow some muscle in this procedure, and the scale weight will probably go up a little bit, but it's knowing that that's not the most important thing right now. Let's monitor body fat. Let's monitor strength, energy levels, that sort of stuff, and just using a different yardstick for that phase is really important.
Agree with that. Let's skip a few steps down the line then with the bulk. So you've increased your calories, you've seen the weight going up, body fat's not too bad, but then you get to a point where the weight's not moving much now, but now the body fat's starting to go up a little bit more. Weight's not budging, body fat's starting to go up. Okay, this is like the moment where you really need to switch on to what's happening. This is where most people don't kind of stay in tune with their body. And they'll keep pushing calories. Right, I need to push more calories, more weight. But your body's now got to a point where it's not feeding the muscles anymore. You're not deteriorating the muscles and giving the muscles enough of a reason to grow to warrant those extra calories. So what happens now is we stick. We don't move. And then we keep training harder, whether it's more intensity, more weight. We just increase volume in a session, basically. We try and do that across weight, sets, reps, as ways of just feeding more into each session, into the week. And then, again, let's go 2, 3, 4 months down the line on this. And then again, you're in this point now where you've maxed out everything. You've maxed out the calories, you've maxed out your training, you're training like a beast, you've increased your calories more, body fat's kind of creeping up a little bit, weight's moved up, but now it's gone static again. Everything's redlining. Training intensity, food, body fat's holding on for dear life. What do we do now? This is what bodybuilders do quite well, I think. They do what's called a little mini cut, which is where they bring everything back down. They actually bring the calories right back down, because your body's now has not stopped responding to everything. It's stopped responding to the training. You can't train any harder. You can't eat any harder. At this point, you bring the calories back down 2, 3, 4, 500 over the space of maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. You have a little bit of a chill, come back into maintenance, maybe slight deficit, let the body recover physically, internally. And the same way your body responds to stimulus in training, and it stops being super sore after the first few sessions, your ability to take on food and nutrients works in the same way. Then as you start building back up, what you might find is, okay, the body liked that break and you're feeding it that new stimulus now of different training, you're going at it again, you're giving it more food, and it's missed that a little bit after kind of 3, 4, 5 weeks, and now it starts kind of responding better, and then you can get to that next level of weight. And it's all about resets along the way, and you need that in a bulk sometimes. You'll see bodybuilders do it where they'll go, right, I've done one competition, and they'll come out public and say, I'm not going to step on stage for 2 years. And that's a huge amount of time to be out at the competitions. But they know the standard wasn't good where they were. They know they need to build copious amounts of muscle. And they can't go into a 2-year bulk where they just can't continuously increasing the calories for 2 years. They have to do this peaks and troughs, up quite a bit, regress a little bit, up quite a bit, regress a little bit. And that's how you play this cat and mouse game with progress.
For the everyday person, you can probably gauge that on appetite as well, something known as satiety. If you feel like food's always there, but like right at the top of your throat, and you feel like I can't eat anymore, that could be a good time to drop into this little mini cut. I've done it with people in the past, just for a week or two. All of a sudden they go, right, I'm hungry again now. And that's usually a question that I lead with, like, when was the last time that you felt hunger? And they go, oh, months. I'm like, cool, let's get that feeling back for you a little bit. Let's give you that discipline of just dropping down a bit, not being a slave to food and the Tupperware all the time. Let's just give you a little break, physically and psychologically as well. And then when they feel that feeling of hunger again, it's probably a layman's way of saying, the bodybuilders take it to the extremes, so we don't have to. We can sort of learn from that. You're probably not going to be redlining most people unless you do it for work. If you get paid for how you look, or you get paid for how you perform, maybe. But for the general public, probably not. But there's a lot to be said about bodybuilders and the guinea pigs that they make themselves. I think
they are the most efficient people at gaining copious amounts of muscle mass while staying relatively lean. It's the two hardest things to do, because the body doesn't want to hold muscle mass. It much prefers body fat. It's an energy source. We can survive. It can live off body fat. It can't survive and live off muscle. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of like Mexican supplements, we like to call them, flying around with these guys to hens to kind of promote that process. But alongside that, the way they bulk and cut, shall we say, has been refined over the years, and the science behind it has got really good now. And you can take a lot from that, even for the average person who wants to gain quite a bit of muscle mass in a short period of time. You can learn a lot from the way they do things.
And muscle is expensive tissue. It's really expensive tissue to have, meaning that you have to, meaning you have to eat a lot to maintain it. Like we regularly get comments about like, well, how would you eat all that? Or like I saw somebody out a couple of weeks ago, I had this giant burger, and they were like, should you be eating that? I'm like, yeah, like I can eat this. I want to eat it. And I can eat a lot of calories. And I'm known in my family as literally the dustbin.
I saw that last week when we cracked open the mayonnaise, mate, and just lathering it up with the cranberry mayonnaise.
Feed me up. But no, I think it's that where there's a joke like, oh, hollow legs, or it's this. There's two things. I move a lot, and there's more muscle there than what there was in the past. So a combination of those two things means that I can probably put away a lot of food. And for a lot of people, that's really that's what they want. It's really what's the word I'm looking for? It's essentially it's what they want. It's what
sought after. Desired.
Yeah, desired. That's the word. I don't know why I forgot the word desire. It's desired for them. They want to live in this hyper palatable world where they can enjoy themselves but not stack on loads of body fat. And the one and only way to do that, in my opinion, is to build muscle.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's I think most people just are very looks orientated, and I get that, and I think that's what kind of the bulk and cut is about. It's not necessarily always about performing, because no one's going to be running a marathon or training for that while they're in massive deficits or in massive bulks.
True.
You play in that happy middle ground when you're kind of wanting a performance aspect. But if it is just for aesthetics, then the bulking and cutting kind of theory can work quite well. It's just the way you approach it, like I said. Low levels of body fat on your way up, and then making sure it's sustainable and long term on the way down.
Absolutely. Just so I can chew on in these bullet points that I've got, a couple of quick tips from me. If you're someone who's probably in my sort of mold, maybe you struggle to get enough calories in because of how much you move, increasing fats is a quick win. For most people who are maybe under consuming calories, the fats is the first thing we try and address, because it's hypercalorific really. 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. Want to tap into that, so whether that's cooking in oils, having nut butters, maybe making different meat choices. And that could be, if you have the hyper lean, what is it, the 5% mince, is it?
5% mince, yeah.
Go for the 10-15% mince. Why not? Some extra calories in there. Why not? You're not doing anything different apart from a couple of swaps. Eating until you're 100%, 110% full, which is something that Precision Nutrition were really keen on when I went on their course. Just almost helping people to understand the satiety levels. So when you are in a deficit, you should almost feel like 80% full. You should feel satisfied, but
I go 70% rule. 70%, if we've got people who aren't wanting to track calories too much for whatever reason, I say 70%. Leave a table 70%. When you go out and order meals, look at what's going to fill you up 70%. That's a good rule. But I like the 110 for the way up as well.
Because it's not, if it were 200, you'd be sick. But if it's 110, you sort of finish a meal and go, I could probably stop there, but I'm going to have this. And that could be something that's a bit more layered. It could be something with nut butter, just to get that extra little top up.
If this is coming out first week of January, I'll be 200% and just coming down from that, I think.
On Bailey's biscuits.
Sage and onion mayonnaise.
And then the other two for me is high protein and lift weights. It goes without saying.
For sure.
Cutting, mate. Should we look into how to cut effectively?
Absolutely, yeah. I want to hear your advice on this first. Let's see what you've got to say about cutting.
So I've put this very simply, but if you can drop calories by 250 to 500 a day and measure specific metrics such as body fat, scale weight, progress pictures, that's a big win, for yourself or for your coach you're working with, mood and energy. And then maybe just, again, moving more. It's a combination of that, calorie deficit plus moving more is a bit of a win when you're dropping into a cut. I threw out some numbers there and I'm hyper conscious that I've thrown numbers out at 250 to 500 a day. I think a lot of people will maybe go well beyond that. They'll try and live off 1,000 a day or whatever. Just figure out what your maintenance is, and then depending on the speed that you want, you can adjust it from there. But as a rule of thumb, I've always found that 250 to 500 a day deficit, dropping it off what your maintenance is, typically works all right.
Let's take it back to layman's terms, and people are probably like, well, how do I know what my deficit is? How do I get to that point where I know whether I'm in a calorie deficit or not? Let's talk you through a step-by-step process that we take, or I take especially, with clients. So number one is working out where their baseline is, what do they need to consume. Now there's a few things that I go off to work out this. Number one is a food diary. I think this is really helpful for a lot of people. And I think the first week of January is a tricky time to fill it out because you're probably trying to eat better. Do you know what I mean? You're probably bringing your calories down. But I would say for just a few days, maybe at least a few weekend days and a few days during the week, 4 or 5 days, just track all your foods, what you eat, you drink, your snacks, everything. It doesn't have to be in MyFitnessPal or any tracking app. Write it down on a piece of paper. That'll give you a good idea of the types of foods you're having. Now, if you do choose to put that into a tracking app, it will give you some numbers, and that's something that we do occasionally do with clients. But from my knowledge of foods, I can look at someone's food diary now they've written on a piece of paper and roughly guesstimate, okay, they're having about 2,000, 2,500 calories a day. So where are we going to go? If we want them in a slight deficit, I like to start, sometimes I'll even start with some people, I even start at maintenance, and I'll just change food quality. So exactly the same amount of food, quantity-wise, we'll just make it better quality and voluminous. So it's lots of veggies and things like that. And normally people come to me and go, I can't even eat the calories because it's such good quality food that they're so satiated from where they were before. Usually a starting point for me if we're looking to get into a bit of a deficit is 200. I like to come about 200 under because it's also about leaving a little bit in the tank for later down the line. That's really important. If you jump straight to 500 calories surplus in week one, sorry, not surplus, if you jump to a 500 calorie deficit in week one, what are you going to drop down to next? Now, some plans that I do, let's say a guy's on 2,500 plus, and we're doing a 12-week cut, we could just do a standard 100 calories less a week. And that sometimes does have certain benefits of it, but it can be quite aggressive, that, I think. So we can sometimes do 100 calories less every 2 weeks. So he goes from eating 2,500 down to 1,900 over 12 weeks. So there's not huge deficits, but he ends up getting to a 600 calorie deficit. He's still got a little bit of energy to train and do things that he wants to do. He or she, by the way. I won't be too sexist here. And you can also, alongside that, start to increase your output. So we're very gently decreasing input, but alongside that increase in output. And we've spoke a lot about dieting and food, but actually your training sessions and how you manage those and your movement day to day is part of the equation. It's your calories in, calories out. And now your calories in is one part of the equation. Your calories out, how much you're expending, is your other. So we can go from doing, a 10, 15, 20, 30 minute walk at the start to banging that up to an hour, hour and a half walk most days. Alongside that, we can go from doing some quite basic, generic compound lifts to then starting to factor in supersets, giant sets, triceps, drop sets towards the end of the program to really drive just the amount of volume that's happening in each session. And they're two variables, food and training output, that can all be changed as you go along in your cut. In a nutshell.
Yeah, I think you've done really, really well with that, mate, to summarise and give the people a lot to think about when it comes to energy input versus your actual energy output. I've put on here as well, this is something that I've done for a number of years now. Whenever people go into a deficit, I purposefully change the program. So it's stuff that I'm not expecting them to, pull up trees in the deadlift or the squat. I'll give them quite novel movements, whether it's single arm or single leg stuff, because they will probably still progress if it's novel. They might feel like, I can probably lift a bit more weight on this. But that initial phase of like something a bit weird and wonderful, if not done before, they can still progress in the gym, but it's something that's quite safe to manage. And it's quite hard to do, but it's things like, lunges, split squats, single arm shoulder presses, like that sort of stuff is incredible. Or bodyweight stuff, they'll probably progress with the bodyweight stuff pretty well because they're getting lighter. So as a psychological win, I'll try and throw that sort of stuff in with their program to sort of bolster the entire process. That arguably is probably the biggest tip that I've got for people. If you are dropping into a deficit and you're coming out of a cut, coming out of a bulk, shall we say, switch up your program and maybe still keeping in a few of those staple movements, but throwing in a couple of bits, more bodyweight stuff. Definitely. Let's just use that as a gauge because you will progress.
It's also a mental change of direction. Like it's nice to go from a bulk into a cut, but like, right, and I'll do this when I do it with my clients. Let's take Rich for example, when he did his big cut, he got down from 22% body fat down to 10. As soon as we started going back up again, whole new program, everything changes.
Yep.
And if he feels like, right, I'm on something new now, I'm doing something different, I'm now going from a cut into a bulk, it's serious time, it's time to get strong, it's time to lift heavy, programs change, exercise to different rep ranges.
Does the music change he's listening to as well? Because I've got views on this.
I don't know, that's a great shout. I wouldn't want anyone to listen to my music at the moment, because my music, have I told you, my music got really fucking dark at the moment.
Is it?
Oh, so dark.
What phase are you in the training? Tell me more.
Savage. It's like, I'm talking like Slipknot's like pop music to me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, that shocks me, that.
Yeah, bad. It's like really heavy, dirty, grimy, disgusting metal.
Fair.
Really bad.
I've never seen you look so like disturbed.
I know. I even when I put it on, I'm a bit like, what am I doing? But the reason I'm listening to it because it really gets me going in a way that no other music can at the moment. And when I'm properly going for it on these conditioning sessions and I'm lifting some serious weight, it's like tapping into an area of my body. I'm just like, I'm tingling.
Yeah.
That bit of pre-workout, I'm ready to take on the world, man.
And respectfully, if you're in a cut and you're doing some steady state workout, you don't want Slipknot.
No.
You probably want something a bit more chilled. I don't know, maybe some house music in there. The only reason I say it is one of my old clients said, I've noticed this. Whenever I change training up, I find some new music to listen to. So like if I'm lifting heavy, rock.
Yeah.
If I'm doing time under tension stuff, hip hop. And they'll switch it up. And I've been trying it out, literally. When I shift into a new phase, I'll just be like, I'll listen to a bit of Miles Smith for some, steady state cardio.
I've never even heard of Miles Smith. No.
He's Miles Smith. He's a bit of a new guy, but he's got this little country twang, and I don't really like country too much. But
I love a bit of country.
But he's a British guy trying to do it right.
He's a British guy trying to do country.
Yeah. I think he sounds really good.
Country's hot, mate. Like some of the big artists, Morgan Wallen, Post Malone's getting a bit more country now. They're selling out like arena tours over here. These are guys from Texas who are like smashing it in the UK. Yeah.
But no, I'll send you.
I put a poll out on my story recently about music. And I basically said that when my training gets more intense, I do move to like some really aggressive, hard, like songs, and my music choice changes as I start getting more intense with my training. And then when I'm scaling back a little bit and I'm going a bit more into like, right, I'm not feeling pushing it as much now, then my music taste change with it. I've had moments where I've had like just something as simple as a podcast on. Not me and you, by the way. I'm not having me and you.
Not listening to us.
Not having me and you, Harry.
It's too stimulating. Listen to us. You want that on your big lifts.
Like maybe I was talking about heavy metal music then. But I think what we'll listen to when it starts to get a little bit more chilled, like I even had like pop music on, like literally just like
Taylor Swift. You're Swifty.
I can get down with a little bit of Taylor Swift. I might have a few tequilas down my neck, but that's like after party music for me. You know, when you come back to the house afterwards and you get the pop tunes on, Westlife 5, I'm all about that. This is how eclectic my music taste is. I've gone from that
I'm quite shocked
to like 5. But I think it's very natural that as your training intensity changes, your music will as well. I think for sure.
I didn't expect to go down this route, but I'm glad we have. I think it's a lot. There's a lot to be said about. I keep saying that word.
I mean, we're covering all boundaries here.
Yeah, I keep saying like the word phase. I think if you can phase your cardio, and that could be a type of cardio. You know, you could eventually, if you want that last little push before your holiday, you might end up doing longer steady state cardio. You might have a bit more intense sessions just for that extra oomph. Because if you Google what exercise or what training burns the most amount of calories, it's running.
Yeah,
you'll always get running.
Yeah.
Running burns an insane amount of calories.
Does it really?
Yeah, insane amount.
I've always known when I've done like big long runs, we've burnt thousands and thousands, but
it's full body locomotion, which is the technical term. Yeah, like a bit of Kylie Minogue in there.
I went straight into it.
Yeah,
I wasn't even waiting for you to say.
No, but no, you get that. I don't know. It's such an amazing calorie burn, but people can live their life by that calorie burn, and it's knowing that you can tap into that. Yeah.
Should we go on to our final thoughts for this episode?
Shall we, mate?
The big thing that I want to really say is at either end of the spectrum, whether you're doing a big bulk and you're at some of the heaviest you'll have been, most likely, with the high calories, high training, or whether you're either other end of the spectrum and you're down here cutting potentially the lightest you've been, your output's going to change. At the high end of the spectrum, when you're in a surplus, big weight gain, you're going to feel unfit, you're going to feel like you can't move much. You've got to be very careful in terms of like how much you challenge the body as well, from like a plyometric jumping around point of view. The body will change. You know, you can't do some of the old training that you used to do. And then when you're cutting, you have to be really careful about pushing too heavy, trying to lift numbers that you were lifting when you were in your bulk. Those things from a training perspective and energy perspective have to be acknowledged and be like, right, I can't keep doing what I was doing before. And just had a thought there about actually how I do have, like, even when I change weight, not only do I change perspectives on like how I'm training and what my body's capable of, but I actually have like a bulking wardrobe and a cutting wardrobe now. So I have clothes that I wear when I'm like pushing 100 kilos, and I've got clothes I wear when I'm like, you know, close to 85.
Do you ever get those calls from clients being like, I'm just on my way to Meadowhall, you bastard. I need to buy some new clothes.
No, girls, it's normally like they come in beaming smile, like, I fit into a size 10 today. I can't believe it. Unbelievable. That's quite nice when you have all those ones. But guys, it's normally the other way. Like the guys losing weight is a funny one because they know they look better. Yeah. They know when they take the top off, they're shredded, they've got the abs, it's awesome. People are giving them compliments on the beach when they're away. Anytime the top's off, they look great. When they put a t-shirt on, different story. Yeah. Because those same t-shirts now drown you a little bit, and if you've not cut up to the kind of, you know, the style of your body or the shape of your body, then your fashion can start looking a little bit like, oh, it looks a bit gaunt. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You don't look as good in clothes, unfortunately, when you cut.
I'll shout out my client Jake actually, because he regularly messaged me saying, I had to buy a new t-shirt again, Brad. He's got into trainers now though, which I can't take responsibility for. So I'm sorry to his other half, because I feel like that's where it started.
Maybe that's where me and Jake will get on, because my trainer collection, I've not shown you my trainer collection. It's extensive.
He's the one who told me about Represents trainers.
Did he?
Yeah.
He's a fellow representer.
Get on that.
I like him. Yeah. Good man. Yeah. He'll have some reps then. Some reptors they call them.
Don't know what you're talking about. I'm not on it yet.
Over your head. Over mine some weeks as well.
Not on it yet. But I suppose just to summarise, cutting is the process of dropping body fat via a calorie deficit and an increase in movement, or both. Yeah. I feel like that's the definition we come up with. Bulking is increasing calories with the aim to build muscle with the addition of lifting big weights.
Great way to end, mate. Happy to end it there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Bang on. Guys, thank you for joining us on the Fit Dads podcast. We'll see you on the next one.
See you soon.